Hello, hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Heather Corinne and I flip furniture for fun and for profit. So if you want to see how I flip a side table like this, stay tuned. So I purchased this item on Facebook Marketplace for only $15, which is a really good price for a solid wood piece like this that has no damage and really pretty hardware already, and the cabinets function properly, which is key, so then you don't have to be replacing a lot of things. Now, I have bought a cabinet like this before that the magnet was either missing or it didn't click properly, and so Keith has helped me in the past with pieces like those where we have to apply new cabinet hardware on the inside. It's really cheap at Lowe's. It might be $1 to get a replacement set. So if you're going to a hardware store anyway, it's worth your time to fix those kinds of things. So step one, we're going to put this piece on some cardboard and raise it up with some wood blocks so that it doesn't stick to the drop cloth. Then we're going to remove the hardware and clean it down really good with just some household cleaner. I like the Mrs. Meyer. Next, I'm going to tape off the inside of these cabinets because I like to leave that natural wood color on the inside. I've done a piece like this before and it just looks gorgeous with it taped off with clean paint lines here. You do want to paint the edges of the doors because sometimes if they don't line up properly when they're shut, you can see where you've stopped painting on the inside. So after we've cleaned it off really well and we've taped up what we want to tape up and remove the hardware, we will apply the first coat of paint and then we'll wait for that to dry. Then we'll apply the second coat of paint and we'll wait for that to dry. Then we're going to add some distressing. And after the distressing is cleaned off, we're going to apply a coat of wax to protect the finished product. So I'm going to get all the prep work done and apply the first coat of paint, and then I'll meet you back there. I did want to point out that when taping the inside of the cabinet, I left probably a ½ inch space on the edge between the tape, just in case when you close the door, if you could see the bottom where it was brown still. So I asked Keith what color he wanted to paint this piece, if he thought gray or white would be better, because that's the two colors I currently have, and he voted on white. So this is the Krylon Chalky Finish Tintable Paint. You get the white tint base, and I get this at Lowe's, and they give you a set amount of colors you can pick from, and this is their classic white. I do think that I'm going to try some Amazon paints for you coming up pretty soon, but I don't want to waste these paints that I already have, so I'm going to finish these off first. So I've already shaken this can up pretty good, and I'm just going to take the lid off. So once again, I am going to be using my chalk paint brush that I got from Lowe's. These are made specifically for chalk painting style. I've linked one down below that's on Amazon that I also am going to order and try because it's about half the price of this one. And so just the tip goes into the paint, just enough to get some on your brush, and then you're just going to start putting it on. The beauty of chalk paint is there is no special way to put the paint on, and what I mean by that is you can kind of just put it on however you want, and there's not really a way that you can mess it up. It's very forgiving. You go in whatever direction you want. I just prefer to smooth it out after I've gotten a decent layer of paint on there. And I'm just going to go around the entire piece and get a solid first coat on. The first coat you are going to be able to see through, so don't freak out. The second coat will definitely improve that. are done with the first coat now, and you can definitely see through it, so that's something I wanted to make sure that you know. It looks like it's not going to look good, but it will look good after you put the second coat on. I've only ever had to put a third coat on one time, and it's not typically the entire piece, it's just like some certain spots. But just know that you can see through it, and you can see a lot of the brush strokes. So yeah, I'm gonna let this dry overnight because it is still pretty wet in certain places and in the corners, and I have to get up early in the morning for a haircut. First haircut I've had in months. Well, since all the quarantine stuff happened, this will be my first haircut. Keith cuts the side of it, but like for the rest, yeah, so I'll put the second coat on this tomorrow, and then we'll wait for that to dry, and then I will show you how I do the distressing, which I'm pretty excited about because this piece has all this pretty detail on these doors that will distress really nicely. So sleep tight, I'll see you tomorrow. It is now the next day. Our first coat is completely dry, so now we are ready to put on our second coat. And yes, you can tell me that my haircut looks good. One quick thing I did want to mention, after I did my first coat last night, I put the brush in a plastic baggie and I just wrap it around so that it's sealed. And you can leave it overnight. You don't even have to put it in the refrigerator or anything. And so now I'm gonna start on the second coat without having to wash this out in between each time. So while I wait on the second coat to dry, I thought I might use some of my gilding wax on the hardware. Even though the hardware is absolutely gorgeous, I don't necessarily love this old brassy, bronzy kind of color. So as you can see, I have gilded these two already, and I was going to show you how I do it. Now, there's probably a much more sophisticated way to do this, but this is how I do it, and it works for me. So I ordered this gilding wax on Amazon. I will link it down below. It was, I'm gonna say I paid like $10 or less for it. All I do is stick my finger in it and rub it on. And if it gets too packed down into the grooves, I use a Q-tip to push the excess out. Now that the paint is completely dry on the second coat, we're going to go in and do some distressing. I just tear off a piece of 220 grit sandpaper. It doesn't have to be that grit. You just want something relatively fine so you're not scraping too much paint off. And I go around any corner or edge that would have gotten wear naturally over time. And I'm really excited about this piece because it has all this detail. I especially go over any kind of corner that would have worn. And if you accidentally sand too much off, you can always go back and add some paint and do the process again. You see how that's adding some depth and dimension? So sanding like this will make a lot of really fine dust all over the piece. So make sure after you've distressed to your level of liking that you go back with a paper towel and some of that all-purpose cleaner and wipe it down gently. Mind you, if you wipe too hard, you will wipe the paint off because it's water-based. But you want to get all of this powder off so that it doesn't turn the wax coat yellow when you put that on. So I'm going to continue distressing around this piece, and then I will meet you back when it's time for the wax coat. I just want to quickly reiterate the importance of cleaning it off after you've sanded it, because if you don't get all of that dust off of it and then you go in with your wax coat, the fact that you've sanded down some of the wood and the paint will turn the wax a shade of yellow and you will be really pissed off. So make sure you dampen this enough to where when you're wiping it, you're getting off all of it and every little crack without wiping extra paint off. Now that we've got all of that dust cleaned off, we're ready to apply our wax coat. And the purpose of the wax coat is to protect it from scratches and any type of liquid. Now you can still scratch it, so you still want to be careful, but I'm using the Krylon Chalky Finish Clear Sealing Wax, and it's the same brand and style as the chalk paint that we used to paint the piece. I get it at Lowe's as well. I'll see if I can find it on Amazon to link for you, and if not, I'll try to link something similar. So the same process as painting, you just dip the tip of the brush into the wax, wipe off the excess so you don't really have that much on the brush. And you're just going to start working it in to the piece. And you can see how it's changing color a little as I'm working that in. That's normal. It has a matte finish, so it won't look shiny once it's completely on there. But you just want to work in a space, one space at a time, and spread the wax out, getting a good thin coat all over the entire piece. You see how it's changing colors as I go? So you can tell where you've done and where you haven't done. All right, I'm gonna go around and finish putting on this wax coat. It takes a little while to dry. I typically let it dry overnight, but depending on how excited I get, I will stage it and take pictures before the wax is completely dry. It can take the wax up to a full month to fully cure. So you want to be really careful with the piece for at least 30 days until, you know, the wax has cured all of the way. Alrighty, I'll meet you back after it's been waxed, and I'm going to put the hardware on, and then after that I will stage it with some cute stuff around my house and take some really good pictures for Facebook Marketplace. Something else I want to quickly address is my bad habit of dipping my paintbrush directly into the cans. That can contaminate your paint and wax and then affect how you do your next pieces if you've gotten some type of debris in there or color bleed or something. So if you're concerned about that, I would suggest getting some paper plates and pouring some of the product out onto the paper plate and then rubbing your brush into it. That way you're not risking contaminating your paint or your wax. I just don't feel like wasting a bunch of paper plates, and it hasn't been much of an issue for me in the past, so I just paint straight out of the can. I also think I don't waste as much paint that way or wax that way, but that's my personal preference. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. I am so delighted with how this piece turned out. It is absolutely gorgeous. I added quite a bit of distressing just to give it that super distressed vintage look. The hardware looks really good put back on, but however, I do think I could have left the hardware as is and it still would have looked wonderful, so don't let that stop you from tackling a project like this. The paint lines turned out pretty great inside. See, it's got that nice clean look that I was going for. I've taken some pretty good pictures and the measurements, and I'm posting it on Facebook Marketplace for $65 because I've sold a similar piece to this for $55 to $65. So at the end of the day, that's about a $50 profit off a really fun project. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you soon.